Hey, what's up, guys? It's Daz with my man petzergling, and we are doing the fourth set of Group G in MSL. It's the losers game. It's between Frozean and Ruby. Frozean being demolished by Nada, and Ruby also being demolished by Kanata. So these guys both lost in about 10 to 11 minutes flat. Two sort of semi-cheesy builds, but either way, they both really got easily outplayed by the two better players. And they're now fighting for a chance to play against Kanata and lose to him in the winner set. Because Kanata having, even though he lost to Nada in the last game and Nada moved on 2-0, Kanata looking pretty strong, at least in my opinion. What do you think, Pet Zerglin?
Yeah, Kanata definitely a favorite to take out either of the, whatever player out of this set wins this game. I'd definitely say Kanata's going out of it. But, I mean, it's TVT, and it's, pro games, so they definitely have a shot at going out of this group. Both of these players, not very known players, definitely want to make it out of it just for sinking 2-1-0. And I believe this is Neo Harmony again. I think they switched up the map order a little bit.
Yeah, it is.
But, yeah, so... Frozean spawning the orange Terran in the upper right, and Ruby in the green Terran in the bottom left. So cross positions on Neo Harmony, so we might end up seeing a pretty long macro game like we saw last game.
Yeah, I think that's pretty likely. I mean, just the base distance is so prohibitive to any sort of cheese. I mean, it's a 4-player map, and not only that, but it's also corners. But there is also, like, some shit in the... You can't just go straight to the enemy's base. There's some shit that you have to navigate around in the middle of the map. So it's really going to take a long time for them to get to each other's bases. So we're probably going to see, Vulture expands and a long macro-ish kind of game.
Yeah, and last game, in the last Neo Harmony game, we saw pretty heavy Vulture play. Now, Vulture play is usually... on selective maps. You don't always see really heavy Vulture play like we saw last game, and I'm guessing we're probably going to see something very similar here. I'm sure both of these players were definitely watching Nada and Kanata, the two better players of the group, duke it out, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see, almost mirror strategies as we saw last game, just on a little bit lower level. And yeah, not much to say too far. I mean, both players building the supply depot in their base, not too cheesy, just right up next to the mineral line for a little bit of econ. But it looks like Frozean, I think it is. I just lost. Yeah, that's Frozean in the top right. Somewhat of a forward barracks, although it's still in his base, so that's not too economically damaging. And it looks like Ruby might actually go for a 14cc here. He's not building a refinery or a barracks, and there goes the SCV. So I think 14cc is actually a pretty good decision. I mean, he got lucky because they're cross spots, but, as long as Ruby can defend this, he's definitely going to take an advantage in this game.
Yeah, either way, even if they're not cross spots, it is a pretty decent distance between all the bases. So not a bad map at all. It's a 14cc on. And I think he should be able to defend it, and he probably will end up taking a small lead. I mean, here's the thing. Here's the reason why you don't see 14cc all the time. If you defend a 14cc, you will take a small lead. But let's say if your opponent goes Vulture CC, like Vulture Expand, he's going to have a CC up only a little later than you. Well, it is going to be a decent bit later, but he's going to also pressure you early with the Vultures, which is going to slow you down. So it depends on the map distance, but most maps it ends up kind of evening out anyway. But he's kind of lucky here because he's got crossbots and he's just so far away that he's probably going to be able to have his Vultures and or a bunker. It depends what he decides to do in time to prevent any kind of pressure. So he's probably going to jump up to an early lead immediately.
Yeah, Ruby looking really good here. Frozean going for the pretty standard Vulture expand. I mean, if Frozean realizes it, and he's going to realize it by the time his Vultures start getting out. Hopefully he doesn't... I'm sure actually you can get a CC in after or before your Vulture and still get your Vulture out on time. So he's got the SCV heading right to Ruby's base, and after that CC goes down, he's going to realize what's up, and it's really going to be up to Frozean how much pressure he can apply on Ruby with his initial Vultures. And also, he has the tech advantage too. Doesn't necessarily need to do damage in TVT, but if you can get some sort of containment or some sort of just tech lead, that's good too. And especially, containment is just so important in TVT. If you give up containment, I mean, you're just in a terrible position because you really just can't break a Terran containment. And with another Terran, it's just not as aggressive. They don't have, the shuttles with Zealots or the Dark Swarm lurkers that Zerg have. So once you get contained as a Terran, I mean, you're pretty much fucking fucked.
Yeah, you pretty much have to wait until dropships. That's your only choice. And if it happens this early in the game, dropships are going to be a long way off. Especially if you're already behind in tech. Like, Ruby's probably, I mean, just now, yeah, he got his factory up. He's getting the second one, but the first one just finished. For some strange reason, he canceled his machine shop. I don't know what was the point of that. Maybe he scouted something in Frozean's base? I don't think so. I don't see him scouting anything recently. And even if he has scouted, what could he really have seen? Maybe it was just a little bit of a mistake. But anyway, it doesn't look like Frozean's going to be able to put any pressure on him. So, Ruby up to an early lead as long as he doesn't get himself contained. And you would think the best way to not get yourself contained is get siege immediately. I mean, the first guy to get siege is going to be the first guy to who's going to be able to contain the other player. But then again, we never know because he might not be able to break through the mines. So that probably might be why he's seeing a lot of vulture play on this map.
Yeah, mine's definitely really solid, and you have that secondary entrance to your natural too, and it almost acts kind of like in TBZ how you can sneak by Zerglings early on maps like Bluestorm and just pick off 1 or 2 SCVs at a time. And that's, I guess, one reason that players like to go vultures, it seems like, but also just a huge map distance. And mines overall are kind of a pain in TVT, so any reason that you can get them out is definitely good. And it seems like as the metagame develops, at the start, people started playing one base and they'd play dropships off of 1 or 2 bases, and now, I mean, we see players like last game go all the way to 3 bases before they get dropships. And one of the main reasons of Goliaths is to take down dropships and to support tanks, but vultures are just a lot more cost efficient than that. And Frozean putting down 4 factories, and it looks like making a supply depot in his natural expansion to kind of create a funnel. But we're probably going to see, once again, heavy vulture play from Frozean. And Ruby is going to start, his macro is going to start picking up here. And so is Frozean's, although I think Ruby, once again, just slightly ahead. As long as he can really efficiently break out of the mines and not get contained in the next couple minutes, I think Ruby's definitely going to hold the lead.
It just depends what Ruby decides to do. I mean, if Ruby decides to tech a little quicker, he's not going to have map control per se, but he will get vultures out, and dropships out quicker, and then he will have map control. I can't see Ruby's factory count right now, but Frozean definitely got his 4th factories faster, I think. So right now, oh no, maybe not. He's getting a 5th factory up right now. So Ruby's macro should be kicking in. It should be going strong. Although Frozean has 2 shops, so he might be going more tanks. I don't really know whose favor that's going to play. I think he definitely has more tanks now. Although again, I can't really. It's just going to depend on control. It looks like we're going to see a very similar situation in the last game, that's for sure. Neither player getting starports. They're both going for really aggressive 5 factories, lots of mines. I think, we just have to see who's going to be the first player to take his expansion, and then how that's going to go. Is he going to be able to hold it? Is the other player going to attack him? Is he going to counter expand? What's going to happen? I don't really know. Just going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, we saw in the last game, really seeing that Ruby Kanata game really gives us a lot of ground to stand on judging this game. We saw that containment really wasn't, although containment, of course, is always effective, it just didn't seem to be as useful as, early tanks or a higher factory count. Nada went to tanks a little bit faster than Kanata did, and it seems like even though Kanata had the early advantage, Nada easily took it back. Yeah, Frozean moving out with some tanks and vultures, and it looks like Ruby only has vultures out in the middle. Ruby just trying to place a lot of mines, maybe pick off a few extra tanks, get lucky, try and regain map control, but he still has those mines outside of his base. And I think he only has a few tanks right now, whereas Frozean already has siege mode. Nice job picking off the mines and not taking any damage to his tanks. And it looks like the Frozean right now is getting in position to take his 3rd base. He's not moving up the high ground to get a containment up or to do anything with those mines. I think he's just setting sort of a perimeter there to safely get his 3rd base. And if he puts that down now, it's a pretty even game at this point because